Snacks are a staple of the American diet, contributing to approximately 20% of energy intake. Most US adults consume 1 to 3 snacks every day. I Googled how many snacks does the average person have per day to find that gem. Staple of our diet is where I want to start. We're expected to snack every single day, multiple times a day, right? We snack on what do we snack on? Let's just start with that because I think that most of us don't really stop and think about how much of a role that plays, the things we snack on, because we snack on all the wrong foods. And I want us to understand that it's actually set up that way, right? Like we've been kind of programmed that way. And what I learned in the last 2,198 days of not eating any snacks at all, right? I haven't had a snack in that long, has absolutely solidified for me that I will never go back to snacking. Because what I learned it's in my head now, and I can't not know what I know. So let's start with we snack on the wrong things, right? We don't snack on healthy foods, right? Our snacks tend to be high in sugar, sweet tasting, fun things. That's what they tend to be. And the obvious offenders are things like cookies, cakes, chocolate, donuts, all the treats that we love to have. And we will have them with coffee, right? So if we go to our local coffee shop, there's usually that little section with all the sweet things we can buy with our coffee. We'll have them in our work cafeterias because when we're finished lunch, we obviously need to have dessert. And of course, we can grab them on the way home, right? When we stop at the grocery store to get our groceries, there's that candy, dessert. Well, actually, there's multiple places in my grocery store. When you first enter, they've got this nice setup of like bakery stuff and whatever, which it just like, I don't even know why it's there because when you get further in at the back of the store, there's another section where the actual bakery is. And of course, you have the junk food aisle. And don't let me forget that at the checkout, you've got all the fun little, the chocolate bar single servings and the chip bag single servings and all the candy single servings that you can grab on the way out. So we've got lots of opportunity to get a snack. What's the problem with this? The very obvious problem with snacks are a staple of our diet idea is that junk is only going to cause weight gain, right? We snack on the wrong stuff and our weight rises. That's the obvious answer that we are all trying to avoid. I remember that like images like this would make me just want to put down whatever I was working on. So if a commercial came on, I would be putting down whatever I was doing to go and see if I had a snack, right? If I'm at the office and someone beside me is eating something like a cookie or whatever, I'd be wondering, oh, what did I bring for my snack? I don't think that we give enough. Anyways, ultra processed junk food causes another huge problem, a much more serious problem that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But related to the weight gain stuff, most of us are going to do something really like we're going to cut back, right? When we notice that we're eating so much cookies, chips, chocolate, whatever, and our weight is rising, we're going to cut back. We're going to just to make it our goal to not eat as many junky things. And so what we end up doing, of course, is eating better snacks, right? So we double down on the healthier snacks like yogurt with granola or fruit or rice cakes or crackers or all the things that we believe are better than cookies, ice cream, and all that stuff, right? Granola bars, if I just look at something that I was doing, they were a staple for my snacks at work. And as a matter of fact, my colleagues as well. Granola bars was something that I saw at the office when I wasn't eating them every day because someone was eating one, right? Can I just tell you that I've never Well, maybe when I was a child, had one granola bar. As an adult, I don't ever remember having one granola bar. Why? Because one granola bar, if I was actually hungry, wasn't satisfying, right? I'd still be hungry. So I would always have to I'd have two granola bars, right? And I'd have two. And even if I was still hungry after that, I still wouldn't have another one just because, well, that seemed excessive. But in all fairness, if you think about the fact that the average granola bar is 100-ish calories, and the ones that I like to eat were the dips, and those are sort of chocolate covered ones, right? And they were about 140 calories back when I believed that calories meant something. Well, that was beating a chocolate bar because a chocolate bar was going to come in at 220 calories. So in my mind, I truly believed I was doing better for myself. So when I was behaving really well and doing what I was supposed to do, how much weight did I lose? I took all the junk out of my diet, and usually that would last for months. How much weight did I lose? Nope. Kept gaining weight, right? So even though I wasn't eating the cookies and whatever, and I was like, trying to be really good, I was still gaining weight, wellness warrior. And that's what most people report, that even when they take a good portion of the junk out and replace it with these healthier snacks, they still end up on a upward get. Now, the weight gain slows down. Okay, so that's better, but it's still happening. Why is that? Well, first of all, look at the fact that granola bars, rice cakes, crackers are still processed food, right? So healthier than the chocolate bar or the cookies or the cake or the donuts this is a question mark in my mind. When you actually look at the carb count, there's a question mark there. But we're going to say it's healthier, right? That's what we were saying. And so we were eating that, we're expecting to lose weight. Secondly, a lot of the time we will have fruit, nature's candy. It's called that for a reason, because nature's candy, fruit, still helps us to pack on the pounds, albeit a little bit more slowly than if I was eating, chocolate bars every day. So I'm not going to say it's not slower, but it's still happening. And so for a lot of us, when we see this problem happening, we're going to do the next thing. We're going to go straight to diet time, right? And this is when we put crappier crap in us, right? Because now we're looking at these bars that are promising us more protein. They're promising us less calories. They're promising us all these things, these diet things that don't do us any better because they're still processed garbage foods, right? We're on this huge diet now, and we're going to just restrict all the foods. So, and this is another part of the problem that happens because we put down the snacks or the garbagey, the obviously garbagey snacks. And then we back up on eating meals, wellness warrior. So now our body is just not getting any of what it needs. And interestingly, though, we don't end up losing weight. And we keep this. So that bar that I'm showing you on the screen, part of the reason I'm showing it to you is because when we cut back on stuff, we still allow those snacks to come in because it's part of our standard diet, right? Because don't forget, 20% of our calories are going to come from our diet. It's built into diets, even our dieting diet. It's built into it, right? That's why these bars exist. That's why the shakes exist. That's why all these things exist. That's why they're going to tell you, like, oh, you can have this many grams of insert fun thing, because heaven forbid, like, we can't get through a day without a fun something. So if you're going to have some chips, make sure you have, the actual serving or half a serving of chips. Does that ever work? Have you actually ever been able to have the serving size of the junk food that they tell you to have? Has that ever worked for you? I know for myself, it's never worked, but it's built in to how we eat. And when I started to look at that it's built in, so these specially formulated snacks that we're supposed to eat on a diet and they're supposed to help us to lose weight. And we see that as failing, except if you're actually looking for a diet that's going to help you to solve your health problem. So what happened to me is that the diet that I found changed everything because it didn't involve snacking. But before I talk about that one diet, right, I want to tell you about the other problem that ultra processed foods have that just cause us to be in a really bad situation. Because these ultra processed foods promote illness, right? They're a major driver of disease. They're high in sugar, which contribute to insulin resistance, and they're high in chemicals, which just cause damage in our bodies altogether. Like if we haven't learned that chemicals are harming our bodies, we're just not paying enough attention, right? Because the number of chemical things that we protect our children from, but then we turn around and allow companies to put chemicals in our everyday foods, right? Because everything that's ultra processed, when you turn it over and read the packaging, it has a bunch of chemicals in it. Those chemicals are not what your body is expecting when it asks you for food. But we eat it anyway, and it's damaging our bodies. So foods that are high in sugar, foods that are highly processed, foods that are high in seed oils, and foods that taste sweet are all going to cause insulin spikes. And if your body has enough insulin spikes over the course of time, right? Our body stops being able to bring our insulin back down to normal levels. So what's happening is that I eat something, insulin rises. I eat something else, a snack, right? So I had breakfast, my insulin rose because there probably was some carbs on that plate. I have a snack, my insulin rises. I have lunch, maybe it's a sandwich, my insulin rises. I have a snack again, my insulin rises. I have supper, maybe there's some rice on my plate, my insulin rises. And if I do that every day for years, yes, my insulin is going to be higher than it's supposed to be. Yes, my body's going to have trouble bringing my insulin back to normal baseline levels overnight. And now I have insulin resistance. And when we have insulin resistance, we develop metabolic damage. There's a lot of chemical processes that are happening there that I'm not going to go into because I'm not a doctor that's going to explain it all to you. But what I've understand from all the doctors that I've listened to, this is what's happening, right? And insulin resistance causes my body to function in ways that it's not supposed to function. Damage, damage, damage. And metabolic damage comes in so many forms that many of us don't even know that we have it, because when we have these things happening, the doctor isn't labeling it metabolic damage. They're saying, "Oh, you have a skin condition," or "Oh, you have a heart condition," or "Oh," they're calling it a bunch of stuff. And we're unaware that we have insulin resistance. We are unaware that we have metabolic damage that's causing health issues that we struggle with on a daily basis. On a daily basis, we are struggling with these things. Why? Because we don't understand it.
To diabetes is a manifestation of insulin resistance at the level of the liver. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is a manifestation of insulin resistance at the ovary. Cardiovascular disease is a manifestation of insulin resistance at the heart. Alzheimer's disease, we are learning, is a manifestation of insulin resistance in the brain. It's regiospecific, and it is because of that that we end up with these different manifestations.
Regiospecific. I feel like we don't understand that our body is constantly trying to keep us safe. And like, so for when I was suffering from metabolic damage in the form of inflammation in my joints, my body had an option, right? It's, have inflamed joints, or maybe the blood staying in the sugar staying in my blood, causing me to be sick and not able to move forward. Of course, my body's going to put it in my joints. Of course, my body's going to put it in fat storage. Of course, my body's going to my body's going to do whatever it can to minimize my health issue. But I need to understand that the only reason that my blood sugar levels are this high is because I'm eating foods that are bringing in that much sugar to my body. So I'm walking around and every single joint in my body is hurting me. And eventually, I was barely able to walk. And at some point, when I couldn't barely walk, I did research. And that research is what brought me to understand that what I needed to do was do a keto diet. Now, lucky for me, I found Dr. Fung and Dr. Westman, right? And between the two of them, what I learned was that snacking was dangerous to my health. That is what I learned from these two doctors, that snacking was dangerous to my health. And I can't imagine, you can't imagine that it frustrated me that no doctor that I was speaking to on a regular basis had ever told me that snacking was going to cause damage to me. Now, I've since learned lots more about this, right? But eating between meals leads to insulin spikes that eventually leads to insulin resistance, that eventually leads to diabetes and other metabolic problems that I haven't had a doctor in my physical world tell me that I had to go online to find a doctor who was going to tell me that. You can't imagine how frustrating, aggravating, annoyed, angry, all the things I was. And it helped me to understand that I needed to stop snacking. Okay, so is it a magic scenario? No, it's not magic. What happened when I stopped snacking? First of all, I want to point out that when I took snacking out, I understood from them that it wasn't just about the junk food snacks, cookies, cakes, blah, blah. I understood from them it was about the normal snacks, so the crackers, the rice cakes, the the yogurt, the all these healthy things that I was eating because I thought that they were better than cookies, and they helped me to understand no, they're similar, and so they're still impacting your body in a negative way. They're still pushing metabolic problems. And what they helped me to understand is because I had insulin resistance, any kind of high carbohydrate food that I would eat, so crackers being a high carbohydrate food that I thought was healthy, fruit being a high carbohydrate food that I thought was healthy, any high carbohydrate food that you eat, when you have insulin resistance, just spikes your insulin, which then is causing problems in your body, which, wow. So in my decision to stop eating snacks, I had to actually look at the entirety and say, well, now, whenever I'm hungry, I'm going to eat a meal. And Dr. Fung and Dr. Westman helped me to understand the importance of eating keto meals, because that was what was going to heal my body. That was what was going to heal my inflammation. That was what was going to help me to live a healthier life. Because I had been dealing with inflammation, Wellness Warrior, from the time that I was 23 until I found keto when I was 46. That's 23 years of eating, of unhealthy, of of pain, right? Can you believe that the inflammation problems that I had lived for 23 years, I solved them in less than 3 months? No more inflammation. Like that, well, I shouldn't say no more inflammation. That might be misstating it. What I will say is that I was no longer walking around with joint pain. I can't say for sure that all the inflammation was solved. What I can say is my joints stopped hurting. 3 months. So you can imagine that my motivation to keep eating this way was actually quite high. And after 5 months, I was living at my correct weight, having lost 80 pounds by putting down snacking and eating healthy meals. And by the way, because I know a lot of people are going to say, well, I was on a diet. So you're right, I was on a diet, but so is everybody else. If you're on a standard American, standard Canadian, standard insert your country there diet, chances are you are on a diet that is pushing weight gain. When I started eating my keto diet, the number one thing that Dr. Westman said was make sure that you eat to satiation. And he explained what that meant. He said, I'm not asking you to be full. I'm asking you to eat until you don't want to eat anymore. However much food that is. He said, do not limit what you're putting on your plate. Just eat to satiation. And just make sure that whatever's on your plate is the healthy foods. And we add to that not snacking. And what happens? So I wasn't hungry. Can I just back up for a second? I started this off by saying that when I would be having my snack, which would have been between breakfast and lunch, I was eating 2 granola bars because one wasn't enough because I was hungry. So I put snacking down. I started eating healthy food as meals and was less hungry. So much so that I went from doing what I was explained to do by Dr. Westman, which was eat your 3 meals a day. So I reintroduced breakfast because I wasn't even having breakfast, when I was doing a standard diet. Oftentimes I was running off to the office. I didn't have time for breakfast unless it was the weekend, I would have breakfast. So I went from having breakfast, lunch, and supper as instructed by Dr. Westman to eventually getting up in the morning and just not being hungry. And he said, only eat when you're hungry. There were some instructions, Wellness Warrior. I followed them. Only eat when you're hungry. I went to, now I'm eating lunch and supper and eventually only eating 1 meal a day. So I wasn't hungry anymore when I put down snacking. My tinnitus went away. I used to have ringing in my ears, driving me nuts. No longer have that. I sleep amazing, by the way, at night. And I don't have insomnia anymore. I used to have, I would say a few nights per month where I wouldn't sleep. Don't have that anymore. I have loads of energy. Right. And I'm happy to report that I've continued all of my activities. So longboarding, snowboarding, cycling, rollerblading, all the activities that I was doing, scootering, I'm trying to think of them. Like all the activities that I love to do, I've kept doing them. And I'm even more excited to tell you that I added new activities, right? Because now I'm climbing, and so climbing, bouldering, that's that kind of idea. And I'm rebounding. So that's like jumping on a trampoline every single day. I've added to my list of activities. But can we talk about some of the unexpected benefits? So the other things, the even more unexpected things that I wasn't I have such a small grocery bill, despite the fact that I'm buying so much meat, fish, eggs, poultry. My grocery bill is smaller. Why is that? Well, first of all, if I'm not buying all that garbage, that you would be surprised how quickly you go through that stuff, actually. You buy it, you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna have a week's worth of snacks here or whatever. Do they ever last a week? Again, if I'm double eating granola bars and double eating the amount of cookies and double eat, if you're constantly doubling up on everything that you're having, does it ever last you the amount of time you think it's gonna last? And then you're still hungry. So you end up just eating because you're hungry and you're constantly feeding yourself. So I I buy enough meat for everybody to have between half a pound and I always have a pound of meat, but for the kids, half a pound to a pound of meat, and still my grocery bills. Now, I don't have the boys all the time, so take that with a grain. But for me and my household, my grocery bills are still smaller than what I was paying when I was doing standard diet. It's crazy. I was eating so much. I was always hungry. It drove me nuts. And today, I eat once a day and I'm absolutely satisfied, right? I'm not looking for anything between meals. Well, maybe I'll have a coffee or maybe I'll have some bubbly water, but I'm not starving myself, wellness warrior. If I feel hungry, I just eat earlier. And that doesn't happen very often that I feel hungry. But if it does, I'll eat earlier, right? I have a meal and it's a meal. I'm not going to have a snack. Again, I just have my meal earlier. If I end up having 2 meals in a day, I don't care. I'm fine with that. I have no problem having 2 meals in a day. What I have a problem with is snacking because that doesn't help my body in any way. Another benefit that I didn't think that I was going to have, but it's really cool, is that I rarely think about food. Like I will prepare my meal. So I'll think about food when it's time to prepare my meal because I got hungry. And so I'll be walking around doing my day and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, I'm starting to feel hungry. And that's when I start thinking, oh, what am I having? And because I usually have 2 or 3 things like defrosting in the fridge, I just grab one. And if it's not finished defrosted, finish defrosting it and cook it. I do not stress myself about food anymore. I'm not worrying about food. I'm not thinking about food. I'm not chasing food, right? Because there's always meat in the fridge. So there's always going to be something for me to cook. I don't have to worry about it. Now, I have to say, my absolute favorite benefit is doing my sports, right? I do my sports and I don't need 2 days to recover. That is my most favorite thing about eating no more snacks ever. Because that has been the biggest benefit to me that I used to go bike riding with my daughter. And so we're going back when she was a kid, right? We would be bike riding. She's like, even say she's 9 years old. I'm still like, we're keeping up with each other, let's say. But the next day, I need to be resting and recovering. We go climbing because we were doing that since, well, tree climbing, not the bouldering. That's a different kind of climbing, but tree climbing. We used to do that once a year. And we did it once a year because I couldn't even do it more than once a year. Like that, can I just tell you, like when we went tree climbing, in the last 6 years since I started eating properly, I can't even tell you how amazed I was at these obstacle courses, which are the same ones. It's not like they changed them. They're set up. I can do them. And the next day I feel fine. I've even fallen when we were learning to skateboard because that's another sport I picked up. I was always longboarding, but we tried skateboarding since going keto. And when I fell on my skateboard, because you're trying to learn to do something new, you're gonna fall. But I wasn't out of commission for days like I would have been. Oh my goodness, fall snowboarding back in the day, and like that was at least 3-4 days that I wasn't able to do anything. I'm just so happy that I'm able to be healthy doing my sports and not afraid. So I started this video off talking about the fact that we're set up, to snack all the time on all the wrong foods. And then when we try to stop, we insert other high carb foods. And when we finally learn that it's the high carb foods that are causing our health problems, skyrocketing our weight, and we we try to do low carb. Well, we can't do it. We struggle, right? And that's the sad thing is that when I started keto, I had a hard time. And I'm sure a lot of you had a hard time. You feel compelled to eat the garbage, right? We don't understand that, but I need you, wellness warrior, to understand that it's by design. We're being encouraged not only to eat addictive food, but we're being encouraged to feed that addictive food to our children. And today's video partially is a plea to every person watching this video to understand what I've learned from not snacking for the last 2,198 days is that it was the snacking that kept me hooked, right? It was the fun food that I was putting on my plate. It was the high carb garbage that is marketed towards us as healthy, even though it's not. And the people marketing it towards us know it's not healthy. That's why they pay lobbyists to fight bills that are trying to get certain things out of our food, and then they fight to get it kept in. And I don't understand, and maybe this is just me not understanding politics, why a company can lobby for more time to poison us, can lobby for the ability to keep junk, telling us that something that's junk and causing our health problems is actually healthy for us, can put lies on the packaging of the food that we are reading to try to understand what we should be eating, can label things in a way that a normal person with a high school education cannot turn it over, read it, and know what that is. And I say high school education because sometimes our children go grocery or go shopping at the store. And if I've taught my kid to look for healthy words, but you just keep changing the words, then yeah, you're tricking my kid. And I think that's despicable. It's disgusting and it shouldn't be happening. And we should be upset about this. Why aren't we? We are being misled. When someone has a drinking problem, they only get success, right? When they actually stop drinking. But somehow we want to solve our carb habit while still snacking. And wellness warrior, I'm trying to get you to see that that's impossible. And replacements don't work. Okay. When people switch from drinking to shopping, and from shopping to gambling, and gambling to sex, and sex to eating, and whatever else they switch around, right? Trying to say, oh, I'm going to chase something else. It doesn't work because addiction is not about what you're doing. It's about the dopamine hit you're getting from the thing you're doing, right? And we can get dopamine hits from so many places, wellness warrior. What we aren't doing is figuring out why we're chasing those dopamine hits. And until we really pause and look at that, we're going to stay stuck because we're going to keep believing this idea that the solution is going to be easy. Just stop snacking. It's like, it's easy. Just don't take the snack. That's the trap, because that company that formulated the snack, the way they formulated it, knows that you're going to come back and get that snack again. They know, right? Because they formulated that way, right? And your mind is buzzing. And they know that if you don't get it today, you're probably going to have some fruit, high in sugar, or you're probably going to, have some pizza, high in sugar, or you're probably going to have some insert healthy distraction that you're trying to do for yourself there, that's still food related and high in carb, that eventually is going to allow your brain to still want the cookie. It's going to allow your brain to still want the chocolate bar, the whatever it is. That's why a lot of these companies that make regular, obvious junk food, donuts, cookies, ice cream, blah, 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 also make healthy junk food, granola bar, crackers, blah, blah, blah. right? And then if you don't touch those, they're going to encourage you, well, then what you really should be doing is having fruit. All of these things are high in carbohydrate, and they know that if they can keep you in that carbohydrate place, eventually you're going to pick up the cookie again. It's a trap, wellness warrior. Food companies have us focused on this delusion that we decide what we eat when they've been programming us to eat their garbage for years. It started when we were babies, right? Because they convinced my parents to that formula and baby cereal were good for my health, right? Like my parents believe that stuff, right? I'm sure your parents believe that stuff, that baby cereal is, feed them that baby cereal, it's good for them, right? No, it's the beginning of the entry into the high carb world. And I'm not saying breast milk doesn't have sugar in it. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that most kids in the history of, people were going from breast milk to the meat and veg, that the healthier veg, not the veg we have today that's been genetically modified to be sweeter than sweet cookies. They were in, I was just about to say, it reminds me of the story where Subway got in trouble because their bread had more carbohydrates than cake, and they're calling it bread. And they're saying, no, 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 you can't call that bread. You have to call that cake. Anyway, these things are happening all around us, right? So why should you listen to me? All right. Hi, my name is Violet. I used to be 80 pounds heavier. I used to be snacking several times a day. And I thought I just loved chocolate. I haven't eaten a snack in 2,198 days, defining snack as eating a little something between two meals. I haven't done that. 2,198 days. I've only eaten meals, wellness warrior. And should you listen to me? I feel like my track record is showing you that you actually can get your health under control. I feel like my track record is showing you that the thing that is pulling you is the fact that you're still eating that stuff. Because when you put it down, like I did, it doesn't pull you anymore. The same way that when you put down drinking, when you put down any of the other things that pull your attention away from good, healthy behavior, it doesn't pull you anymore. But you need to put it down. So, if you'd like to work with me, I have a link in the description so that if you want to get yourself to a place where you eat healthy every day, we can work together. Check out that link. I want to talk to you. I want to answer your questions, Wellness Warrior. What do you think about what I had to say today? What questions, comments, ideas do you want me to run through? First and foremost, I want to say hello, Kimberly. Hello, Pat. Pam is jamming. I'm so happy to see you here today. I'm very, very happy. So, Karina saying, Karen, I'm thinking it's probably pronounced Karen, sorry. Granola bars are cookies in disguise. And I do agree with you. I think that they're horrible. If you have questions, please QQQ in front of your questions and things that are meant for me, because I'm going to try to look for questions that I can answer to help maybe move this conversation forward. And hello, Garejo Legends. Why am I? Okay. Hello. Hi, Lynn. How are you doing? You used to eat Quest bars. You started keto, but as I learned more info, I quit. And I feel like this is very important. Processed food is processed food, whether it's low in sugar or not. If it's processed, our body still interacts with it differently than any plant that we grow or any like animal that we grow. So one of the things that's hard for me, and when I what I understood from Dr. Fung and Dr. Westman and many other doctors, but they were the first two that I found. And what I liked about the videos that I found from them was that in a very basic, specific, straightforward way, they were clear on the idea that snacking was harming my health. And both of them, in different words, basically said, eat meals, eat to satiation. And so that's what I did. Now, I know Dr. Westman and Dr. Fung have since gone on and said more things. Some things I agree with, and some things I'm kind of like, okay. But at the end of the day, I feel like they're amazing on the base level is always amazing. And then, like, I feel for myself, I want to stick as close to what's purest for my health. I feel like Dr. Westman and Dr. Fung over the years, the more you're public facing, the more criticism you receive. I feel like the more we feel pressure to say what's popular rather than say what's baseline health. I'm as far as whatever I say in the moment, I'm trying always to say what's baseline health, because I unfortunately know just based on what I do for a living that if I say 10, 90% of people are going to say, what? Oh, was it 9? Oh, you meant 7? Wait, 11? Even though it was 10, right? Because we're always looking for the loophole because eating healthy is hard. So, yeah, when I learned that our body manages processed food differently and that our body has a hard time with processed food, that helped me. It helped me because then the least amount of processed food coming in, the better. And that just became, it just became my go-to. And Laura, and hello, I do understand that the fact that cream cheese and eggs are healthy. Anytime I see somebody saying that they're eating for fun, it's like you need to ask yourself, but is that what my body wants me to do? And I know you're saying it like, haha, because it's, eggs and cream cheese. But there's a lot of people in our community who still actually want to celebrate with food, right? So like they want to feel good and eat something. And I'm really trying to get us to put that idea down. Whenever you go to eat something, it should be because your body is asking you for either nutrients, so building blocks, or energy. And then you should be giving it the cleanest possible building blocks and energy that you can. So I definitely want to encourage everybody to let's think about it slightly differently, right? Let's look at it from the perspective of there's so many other places in my life that I can have fun, right? I can have fun with people. I can take up a hobby. I can take up a sport. I can read. I can educate myself. There's so many places that I can have fun. Is food a place that we want to keep it having fun? So I definitely want everybody to just think about that. Little Pooh Bear, hello. And I see a question that I feel like I missed. Can I drink protein shakes? And so I feel like my answer that I was just giving kind of touches that, but I'm going to just answer it directly. Protein shakes are processed food. You'd do better to eat meals. So now the question that I have for you is, and I feel like I went back to see the question because I could see that Pat was asking you a question. And you said, why not eat both protein shakes and meat? And the reason for being careful with protein shakes, so there's so many reasons, but processed food, first of all. Second of all, what kind of protein? So the more that I do research, the more that I read things, the more that I understand that, for example, whey protein, which is one of the protein sources that at least it's animal based. I've now been helped to understand that whey protein absolutely pushes insulin resistance. And so Where at one point I would have thought whey protein was healthy, the more you let yourself learn things, the more you understand that sometimes things you think are healthy are contributing to you having a problem, right? Because even we don't want to have insulin resistance. I mean, I'll just be as blatantly and blunt as possible. Insulin resistance is bad. And a lot of protein, if protein shakes that are either going to be plant protein, not great, because plant protein is not bioavailable anyway, or not as bioavailable anyway. And so you're having all this extra carb intake and all this extra whatever intake that you're taking in because it's still chemical and whatever, and all these processes that were done to this protein shake. And then you're not necessarily getting even the amount of protein out of it so that you would want to get. So I would just encourage, and I probably could, if I think of other reasons, because there's so many reasons not to have chemical when you can have real food. Your body knows what to do with real food. Can I point out that our body knows what to do with real food so much that even back in 1960s and the 1950s, when we were eating meat and potatoes, which you would look at that and say, well, that's a lot of carb. How were we healthier back then? Not necessarily fully healthy, but healthier. And why did all of our problems start later? It's because, simply put, back then we were eating meat and potatoes, meat and rice, right? We were eating meat and a starch. Starch is a bunch of glucose chained together, right? Glucose molecules chained together. Your body absolutely knows what to do with glucose. What it doesn't know what to do with is all these other sugars that we keep trying to force it to manipulate. What it doesn't know what to do with is all the other things, the anti-nutrients in other plants. And don't get me wrong, potatoes have anti-nutrients. Don't get me wrong. Like there are bad things, but our body was still that's what I'm saying. We were doing better. We weren't as large as we currently are. So my point is, let's go for the real food at minimum. At minimum. If you're going to do other things, that's at your risk, right? I see Yvonne Michaels. Hello. I think that's a new name. I don't think I've read your name before. Hello. From Phoenix. I'm new. You're new to carnivore and already seeing benefits in 3 months. Didn't know ringing of the ears can be cured. How long did it take you? Love your. You know what, Yvonne? So here's the thing. I didn't even notice it happened until I was in a scenario where. So I not only did I have ringing in my ears would also block. Like when in elevated situations, so going in a plane, going in up mountains, like driving up mountains, my ears would block. And so I noticed it because we were going skiing. And so see, the thing, I don't know how long it had been solved, because the problem is when I started my lifestyle in 2018, keto lifestyle in 2018, April. And then, so 2019, we did go skiing 2018, but I didn't notice that difference. 2019 winter is when all the chaos happened, right? And then 2020, we were still in chaos. So I didn't get a chance to go skiing again for quite some time. So I don't know when it happened. All I know is that was the scenario. We went up north to go skiing where I would normally have had the problem happen. And then I started thinking about it and realized, oh my gosh, I don't hear the noise. And it was kind of weird because I was so used to hearing the noise that I almost didn't pay attention to the fact that again, there's a lot of things that I was living with in my life, a lot of physical pain, a lot of, problems that I was living with that I just was so used to them being there, I stopped paying attention to them. And so when I realized that the blockage didn't happen, then I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I realized the ringing was gone. And then, of course, I started checking all the different scenarios where I would normally hear ringing and realize, yeah, it's not there. Like in a quiet environment when I'm by myself, it was basically if I was paying attention, it would all be all I would pay attention to. Again, I learned to not pay attention. Otherwise that would just, it would just be frustrating. But I don't know how long it took. I wish I could tell you. What I will tell you though, that if, like, for example, you watch my channel, like when I was eating nuts for dessert, after, like, so part of my meal, not between meals. So that's not snacking. That's a dessert, which I did drop desserts too, but that came much later. But when I was eating nuts for dessert, um, the ringing came back, which was part of one of the things that made me realize, like, hey, this is just not good. It wasn't just that I was eating too many of them. It was like I was starting to have things happen. My joint pain was kind of coming back. So I had little things happen that made me little big things happen that made me think, you know what? This is a problem. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. I'm going to give you a few seconds to just, if there's anybody has anything, but I want to let you know next week, Monday, I'm going to be live again. I like being live with you guys and sharing information. And it's just fun to be in here talking to you and just sharing the thoughts that I have about, like, how everybody can be healthier. I definitely want everyone to make a commitment to eating healthy every single day, right? That's the only way you're going to get your body and your health back, and your mental health, because it's everything. We need proper nutrition for everything to function. So do me a favor before we leave. If everyone that's here could just hit that like button so that YouTube knows that this is a quality video and send it out to more people. I can tell that there's no more questions. I feel like that just means I presented really well. I'm going to take that to mean that. So I'm so happy that I gave you guys some quality information today. Check the description. There's links down there, squad, coaching, all the things. I'll talk to you. Oh, click on the link. I'm going to link in the description. There's also a playlist to help you to get your addiction, or should I say cravings, under control. We know they're the same thing, right? Get your cravings under control. I have a playlist down there that's going to help you to talk it through in your head and, like, just understand why you're doing what you're doing. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next week, next Monday. Bye.